Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 157 of the Peak of Serenity podcast. I am, as always, one of your hosts, Emerson, and joining me, we have my co host, Anomaly.
Hello, hello.
And this week, patches out. 10.1 is here. We have the new zone and none of the other new content.
Yeah, literally just the zone. And not even everything in the zone, by the way.
Yeah.
A couple of events are not spawning, which I find hilarious. So
Um, we also, like, both of us, I think, have been pretty deep in the raid, like, strat prep stuff the past week. Uh, Raid releases on Tuesday, so now's a good time to maybe talk through some stuff. Like maybe talk through which bosses we're planning to tackle first, what our like overall plan for the raid is,
yeah.
and then there was some tuning both to classes and to the raid, and to
Yeah,
items.
some tuning.
Some tuning.
Like Blizzard at 6 o'clock on a Friday, Pacific time, of course, wanted to make all their changes. So,
Yeah. The number 72% shows up, so you know it's got to be
uh,
good.
God damn, that's funny. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so let's get into it. But actually, maybe we start with how was your last week in Vault of the Incarnates, Anam?
It was quick. It was very quick.
Really?
We did yeah, we literally did four bosses.
Oh,
We did basically just the clear to Diurna, or sorry, clear to Razagath, so uh whatever the first boss is, Aranog, Diurna, then Razagath, and then just did council and sort of called it quits for the night. It's also a little bit about like the raid coming up, a little bit about Mythic Plus stuff as a guild, but yeah, it was a quick raid night. We did run into, I guess we could move this sort of topic up a little bit. Did run into a fun little scaling bug, we'll say,
oh,
in
was
on
this on Diurna?
both on, well, everywhere. So on
Oh, okay.
Diurna and on Razagath, all of the absorbs were essentially scaling 25% more than they should. So the healing absorbs on Diurna, or the healing shields, I guess they put up, and then Razagath, both the P2 shields
I
and
heard about that.
the
Okay,
debuffs
yeah,
you need to heal off, all had a little bit extra oomph
yeah.
in them. So
It
that was
turns
fun.
out that when you buff Storm Surge Shield by 25%, that phase goes from kind of a meme to being very difficult in a hurry.
Yeah, yeah. Apparently, it was also Kurog was also buffed, like the healing, quote unquote buffed, but the absorbs on Kurog were also bugged there. So
That's fascinating.
yeah, yeah, and they were bugged for most of Tuesday. Actually, for pretty much all of NA rating Tuesday. I think Blizzard pushed the hotfix like after midnight Eastern time. So like our
Amazing.
raid had been long done. But yeah, I will tell you, like for us, definitely it's funny. Did not notice it in the first intermission, those shields being any worse,
Yeah,
but 100% noticed that the shields in P2 took a little bit longer to break.
yeah.
Not a lot, but like an extra like 3 or 4 seconds, which is like, 1 to 2 more ticks, which weren't used to. But yeah, other than that, raid went perfectly fine. Had like 3 or 4 new people in on for Razagath, just for like our recruits or new folks joining the guild, so new trials, which are cool. Um, and they did a quick back clear build, for maybe one last chance at icon, which I think we've only seen like 2 mythic icons this entire
Yeah.
like raid,
Most of
and
ours have
zero,
come
oh,
from the vault.
zero mythic grief torches. We actually finished out the tier with not a single mythic grief torch
Oh, now that
dropping
you
for
mention
us.
it, I don't know that we ever got a mythic grief torch drop. I think all of our mythic grief torches might have
Yep.
come from the vault.
All of ours were for vault, and then I think we saw 2 in heroic. But yeah,
Yeah.
zero. So it was a great way to finish it off. But capped it off was a short night on Tuesday. Took the rest of the week off.
You
And
know,
really just sort of got ready.
in hindsight, it's actually a little bit good that I didn't play my monk this tier because it means that all of the like very rare loot off of the first two bosses I have on my monk.
Nice, nice.
So like I like my rings, I'm set for the rest of the expansion.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah.
Um, yeah, like I mentioned last week, we did not raid this week. We took our Friday raid and spent a couple hours just going over strat stuff with the team for next week. We have the benefit as like a weekend raiding guild that we can punt on a lot
Yeah.
and just know that we have the luxury of time. We don't raid until Friday. So we can just look at what people like you do on Tuesday. And
Much easier.
and and you know, I don't have healing cooldowns done. You mentioned you were working on healing cooldowns for the raid.
Yeah.
I don't have healing cooldowns done because I can just use real logs on Tuesday and do them.
Just copy, yeah. Yeah, that's been what I've been working, like what I worked on basically just over the weekend for spent a couple hours today, a couple hours yesterday. And just guessing at healing comps, which is fun. Like, I guess that we'll probably four heal the first like two or three bosses. So like that's what I did cooldown wise. So it'll be interesting to see what. And the funny thing is nowadays with splits being such a big thing in the raid, like we probably won't have many logs even when we're raiding mythic.
Yeah.
Even by Thursday, even if we only clear heroic on Tuesday, right? Even our Thursday raid, we only have some examples for like one or two bosses. So
Yeah. Do
but
you
yeah,
want to
it'll be.
go? Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Do you want to go a little bit out of order and jump into some of the raid prep stuff, and then we
Yeah,
can
it's
do
fine.
some of the
Yeah,
news after?
yeah, we can do that. Change it up. It's new time anyway. What's new us? So raid prep wise, I mean, for me, that's been what. So my focus is sort of doing all the healing cooldowns. I don't do much of the strat stuff. So basically spent all day yesterday reviewing any content that's out there. So I don't get a chance to do PTR. So a lot of my prep is like watching guides. So like watched every ready check pull guide probably 3 or 4 times each.
Yeah.
There's like a Sarah, I think. What's her name? I think it's her. Uh yeah. So, oh, sorry, Sugar Venom. Watch a bunch of Sugar Venom stuff. Basically, Red Mythic Trap, of course, because I think that's a really good site to lay everything out. But yeah, did a bunch of prep just understanding abilities. And then we use Viseria's raid cooldown sheet
Yeah.
for timings. And so like went through all the abilities, understood maybe where we'll need cooldowns, line that up with what the sheet says, and then sort of guessed and basically penciled stuff in so everybody has an idea of what they'll use. It's weird. There's a couple bosses, not weird, but there's a couple bosses where the rate is split for most of it, which for us is always interesting because like we don't generally set it, like the comp that we set for each side will be set sort of as we get to the boss. So like for those bosses, I sort of just like, hey, we'll need a major cooldown here, and we'll like put your name in when we get there,
Yeah.
for that type of stuff. But no, all the bosses look. It's a very shadow flamey raid. We'll say there's a lot of
Yeah.
like
Yep.
shadow flame abilities out there. But it seems cool. It seems really cool. Like I don't think there's one boss that I'm dreading doing.
Yeah. Oh,
It's a lot
I
of.
have one that I'm dreading.
You
But
have one that you're dreading?
yeah.
No, for me, nothing really. Just a lot of, I'll say from a healer point of view. Oh, got him.
Your
That's
light.
my.
Oh no.
It's actually the different one, by the way. It's my entire office is just. I need to maybe be a
What
little bit
the
of an
hell?
electrician. Anyway, I don't know. I will say there is a lot of ramping tick damage in the raid.
Yep.
That's a lot of like it seems like a lot of the soft and rage is just ramping tick damage, which is cool, but also like as a healer, as doing healer cooldowns, it's always like in those fights, it's always funny. I always do those fights backwards.
Yeah.
So like I basically do like rallies, AMs, like stuff like that late, and then I basically back my way into the rest of the cooldowns the way that I do it. So um yeah, it seems like a fun raid though. But I don't know. I guess maybe I'll stop there and healer prep started. How is your prepping going?
It's been going good. So I'm in a very unique position in that as part of work, I do a good chunk of the mechanic prep for Wipefest. Um, so also shout out, almost all of the bosses are up on Wipefest at this point. So I did a bunch of prep kind of for free by doing that.
Nice.
Um, but that doesn't tell you a whole lot about like healing numbers and things like that. So there's still a bunch of more prep that I'm going to be doing on Tuesday to catch up on that. Um, I think one of the things that is interesting about this raid is that there's a lot of almost just like three mechanic bosses
Yeah.
where it almost literally is like the boss has three mechanics. And looking back at Vault of the Incarnates, actually, there's a lot of it too. The boss has three mechanics, and there's other like I'll call them fluff mechanics. Swirlies that you don't stand in, and
Mhm.
area denial, like basic kind of area denial stuff, not like big strat defining one. But a lot of the fights just have three mechanics. And the bigger fights, like if you look at Echo of Notherian at the end, if you look at phase one, there's three mechanics.
Yeah.
If you look at phase two, there's three mechanics with some overlap with phase one, but it's different. And then the same with phase three. And so that was just kind of like an interesting pattern that I noticed as I was doing prep. But we had like me and one of the other officers on my team kind of prepped notes and went over stuff with the team on Friday. Uh, with a lot of, I think, we'll see on Tuesday was probably uttered by me like 20 or 30 times.
Yeah.
Because there's just a lot of stuff that changed after testing that, again, I raid on the weekends, I raid Friday, Sunday, so we have the luxury of time. Like, I can look at how things are going on Tuesday and be like, okay, we're definitely not doing that. Or, oh, this boss that we thought was going to be hard or complicated turns out to just not be hard. So we can
Yeah. Do
just,
anything. Yeah.
we don't need to spend a lot of time, on prep for it. Um, so just things like that. Um, One of the things, and I'm curious what you guys are currently looking at doing for like a boss order. So the way this raid is structured, the first five bosses, you always have the same first boss. Then
Yep.
it splits into two wings, each of which has two bosses. And then after past that point, there's just a single boss, 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 and boss. Um,
Yeah.
so what do you guys like? Do
I
you,
think. Yeah. So I think our plan, I think currently is to do the amalgamation Forgotten Experiments wing first, and then go back for Assault and Rashok. I think just because I think Rashok ends up being the more difficult uh, potential boss. Like I guess Rashok and Forgotten Experiments can both be similar in difficulty, but I feel like Rashok ends up being I think more of a DPS and more of a healing check
yeah,
than the experiments do. So I think that's going to be I think our tentative order will be doing that. I don't think we'll jump around because typically we don't like
it's a lot of
backclearing or
travel
whatever at
time.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, between it. So that's going to be I think our plan. So I feel really confident in being able to handle forgotten experiments. I feel less confident about our like really it's just the soaks on Rashok that I'm worried about is like how to or not, is that Rashok? No, sorry, not the soaks. But
Rashak
the
has soaks.
oh they do yeah. So it's essentially like the amount of damage that he can do going to be potentially difficult.
Yeah,
So
so I think we are tentatively doing the same thing. Again,
yeah,
like luxury of time. I don't have to be
yeah,
committal. We can find out on Tuesday. So if Rashok turns out to be a complete meme, maybe we do that wing first. Just go collect that loot and then go to the other wing.
yeah.
But I think tentatively, like our plan for heroic is the same as that. Like Forgotten Experiments, is way less hectic on heroic as compared to mythic, just because you don't have the different boss mechanics from the three bosses that are in that fight overlapping on heroic, where they do overlap on mythic. Although, actually, also while we're on that subject, I did some looking with people from the community and Sinzu in particular, and it appears that the timers for that boss are on rails, so it doesn't matter when you push phases on mythic.
Oh, that's good. Well, well, it's
Well,
good and bad.
it's good in
Bec-
that it means you don't have to try and do any shenanigans with push timers and stopping DPS really. Um, so okay, let me
I think
back
you
up.
still will,
No,
but
no,
like
no.
I think it's more consistent. Maybe.
The main thing that you care about not overlapping with is volatile eruption from the second
Yeah.
boss, because it's just a ton of raid damage, and having that overlap with one of the other boss mechanics from either of the other bosses, honestly, is like really bad.
Yeah.
Um, and it just the first one in phase 2 just doesn't overlap with the timers that I've seen.
Gotcha. Oh
Um,
yeah, okay. Because if they're on rails, then they're always going to cast at the same time, so it
right.
doesn't. They've already set
So
it up not to overlap.
the
Gotcha.
the
Yeah.
only thing that you could do, I let me back up. I think it overlaps with like a minor mechanic, but not something really big
Yeah.
like the renting charge.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um, but one thing that you could potentially do still is if you know it's on rails, you could stop DPS in order to say push it after, you know, the dot goes out or would
Hmm.
go out would go out instead of, right before it. But that would be like the only thing that you could really do
Yeah.
because the it takes like a minute and change for the boss to cast that thing after people were pushing on PTR. So like you're not gonna stop DPS for a minute
No. No.
trying to
No.
do that
No.
on boss what might be boss number 3. Like that would be ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. That's a good thing to know. At least we have definitely for Mythic. But even I mean, even on heroic, like you're right. Like they're the that boss particular again is like yeah, you're right. Another um three uh three mechanic boss, which is nice for each one of them. So
Yeah. Um for Mythic, I mean our overall like thinking is that we'll probably get the first 8 of heroic without much issue. The last boss
yeah.
is always a pretty big step up, or has
Hmm.
historically been for like the past 3 or 4 years. Um, and so, especially with it being untested, there's no videos out or anything from PTR testing for us to do prep on. It's a bit more of a wild card. So, what it might be is like we do the first 8 and then go do some mythic bosses and then go pull that
Yeah.
instead of like banging our heads into that when there's just potentially very doable mythic bosses that we could work on instead.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first three on Mythic probably end up being something you could do, right? Like whether that's a split
Right.
between amalgamation and like assault, or like you can do amalgamation and the council boss and forgotten experiments, right?
Yeah.
As your first three. So
So that's where I think like our boss order differs from heroic to mythic. I think Assault of the
mm.
Zakali on mythic is likely to be a lot easier than Amalgamation Chamber for
Oh, okay.
2 reasons. One is the dot, um, just like that ramping dot
Yeah.
is going to be more of a problem with less gear. Um, whereas on Assault of the Zakali, there's like the molten barrier kind of does that, but it like does it and then stops, which means you can put a healing cooldown there,
Hmm.
and probably be okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Does I haven't checked this on Mythic, but is the debuff permanent on Mythic?
yeah,
Oh yeah, because the Mythic mechanic is you run into each other and you
right. It's got
clear.
like the Anduin
Okay.
kind of clear mechanic where you
Yeah.
you touch somebody the other color and it removes your debuff.
Gotcha.
Um, and that's
That's
actually
so
I think
much
the
coordination.
I think that's the other thing that is going to make that boss harder is
Yeah.
just like it at the end of the day, it's a numbers game, right? Like the numbers may not be there for it to be hard or for it to matter,
Right. Yeah.
but they could be. And if they are, then that coordination required could, I think, very easily push it to be harder than Assault of the Zakali. So
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, because assault's gonna be just about like doing the mechanic, right? And having enough damage or healing for when you need it in those like certain areas. So
yeah,
plus I think the myth mechanic on that one just like a push, like you could be blown off the platform. There's like a movement
there's
thing.
there's
So
little like Kael'thas Phoenixes that spawn too, but they don't do the
okay.
permanent fire, which was the actual problem on Kael'thas. They
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
like do some ticking damage while they're alive.
Okay.
But again,
That would be
there's
nice.
all of this stuff that's like numbers change, right? Like the ticking damage on PTR was like a little bit on the high side, but the Phoenixes had no health, so you just didn't get any of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Nice.
but yeah, so it's gonna be interesting. It's always very interesting the first week, and it's gonna
Hmm.
be um very interesting going into this is gonna be the first tier that we've had the new kind of gear structure that is not an expansion launch.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause, yeah. Because I mean, well, it'll be yeah. It'll be yeah. I guess we'll see how it plays out with like the. I mean, the upgrades too are like it's the whole upgrade system too is brand new.
Right.
So I mean, that'll be fun to sort of deal with. We'll see how I guess we'll see how that plays out. But
Yeah.
you know, yeah, that I think the split. I like how there's only one split and it's fairly early in terms of like bosses, right? So we're not dealing with like triple wings.
Yeah.
I mean, so I guess maybe so you'll probably end up doing very similar for your heroic clear that we will, and then I think I agree with you. Assault probably being the easier of between amalgamation chamber and that. It's probably just yeah, assault and amalgamation chamber is the first three, and then
Yeah. I agree
figure
with
out
that.
experiments and Rashok which one's going to be worse because you're right, it's going to be a tuning thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Rashok is like if the numbers aren't there, then it's just an easy boss and you go and you kill it. But they're
yeah,
pretty good at making the numbers big, so I would not
that is
expect that to be a pushover.
that is true. In terms of bosses, having reviewed, so I will say that I haven't finished my Echoes of Neltharion like full review yet, so still don't know much about that. But I'd say of the bosses that you've at least gone through, is there any sort of standouts where you're like, hey, I'm excited to try and progress this, but like based on paper, based even on your experience on PTR?
Ooh. Actually, Echo Neltharion is the one that I'm like probably most excited for. I have not even read the dungeon journal for Sarkareth. I have just like
Gotcha.
not spending time on it, so I
Yeah, I
can't
mean
answer that one.
discount, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, discounting Sakura. Is there I guess leading up to it, Echo
Um
is gonna be the one you're looking forward to then?
yeah, Skarn, I thought so okay. I went into Skarn prep thinking that you could bait all of the traps. That is
Yeah.
wrong. You
Yeah,
cannot.
there's always one random one, yeah.
It's two random ones on Mythic, and that's the like so I had this glorious plan that baited all the traps in specific locations, and it's actually beautiful. It uses basically the entire room by the end of the fight very efficiently. Uses exactly the amount of golems that you get to clear traps. Like the whole thing works out perfectly. The random traps mean it doesn't work.
Yeah. Nice.
And so I was really excited about that one. And then
Yeah.
the random traps. And now I am no longer excited about that one. I am actually very much dreading that one now because of the random
Really?
traps. The
Fair
dot
enough.
from the traps destroys.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I think anything more than at least on heroic, the numbers I saw, anything more than 2, like, if you get 2 ticks, like, you need a dedicated healer. Like,
yeah.
it's like like, pop a personal, you are more than likely going to die. And yeah, if you get 3, it's yeah, you're basically just dead weight, like
And it's just like
yeah.
there's all these other things that force you to move around the room that are also random. You know, the
Yeah.
random bomb spawns, the random golem spawns. The
Uh,
only two things that are not random are the boss position, which determines two of the trap spawn locations, and the boss position, which determines the tactical destruction, like cones spawn
the
location.
cones, yeah.
Um, so like I understand wanting to have some variance, but like random golem spawns, random bomb spawns, random traps is just like I am not looking forward to people like chasing a golem around and then a random trap spawns in between them and the golem, and they have to like go around it, and somebody just like barrels through it and takes two stacks of the
Yeah.
dot and then dies, and then we wipe because we couldn't kill the golem, and it just all falls apart. Like I'm just like not
It seems
that.
like a very it seems like it ends up being a potentially very melee unfriendly fight, like, depending on those spawns, right?
Yeah,
But you can CC the like, I know you can CC the golems, at least
yeah.
slow them.
You can
Sure,
fully
that's ton of
CC
ball.
them. They
Are they
become
grippable?
CC. Yeah, they become CC
Okay,
immune at 50% health, or when they
okay,
reach 100 energy.
gotcha.
Similar to like
Yes.
the Razageth intermission ads, that like they have an energy bar that they will eventually become immune to CC and like break out of your roots and walk right through Ring of Peace and ignore Death Grip and all that stuff.
Yeah. 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 Man, maybe yeah, definitely a DK fight, but it seems like a very like melee unfriendly fight
Yeah,
for at least the stuff. Yeah. Which is so it's funny that you're not looking forward to that because I think Zakarn is the fight that I'm most looking forward to.
really. Okay.
For what I've done. Yeah, I uh, for whatever reason I've always enjoyed fights where it's like you need to use something from another enemy, like basically the whole like kill an enemy, get a buff or get a drop, and
Right,
then
and
use that
use
to like
that.
negate a mechanic. Yeah,
Yeah,
I like that sort of coordination and stuff like that. So but yeah, no, that was of all of I think Zakarn is what I'm most looking forward to. Magmarak seems like fun and quick in like a very sludge fisty way of
yeah,
like just do a bunch of damage before it kills you. So that
yeah.
has been that looks really interesting. But yeah, Zakarn I think is my favorite. And Echo, like the only thing I know about Echo, and I know a little bit more than this, but there's a line of sight mechanic, and that's just automatically trash your boss.
The line of sight mechanic is only on Mythic, so you've got that going for you. You won't have to deal with it
Yeah.
on Heroic. Um,
So
and
instead of 20 pulls, I have to do it for like 100 pulls. Awesome.
it's much more restricted than the line of sight mechanic on um like Ajara, right? Or even on the Jailer.
Gotcha.
It is instead of the whole raid getting out of line of sight of the boss, it is 3 people getting out of line of sight of the raid. Briefly to drop a bomb and then get back.
So it's like a Jara dispels.
It's more like a jar dispels, except you don't have to do janky stuff to get them dispelled around a corner. And it is
Gotcha.
like imp stationary at the
Oh
angle
god.
garbage that was a constant problem. Yeah.
Or like trying to like MD halfway around a oh god, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was awful. None of that. None of that.
Okay. Man.
Um so I'm like uh, I don't feel like the line of sight on that is going to be a major annoyance because of the way the line of sight thing is structured. It's just like they get a mechanic, they run out with the mechanic behind the corner, they drop it off, they come back. It's not, a Jara where the tank spends like half of phase 2 onward just out of line of sight of the boss, not doing
yeah.
anything, waiting for their stacks to drop, and if you accidentally move back into line of sight, you refresh them and it's hopefully a wipe.
It's over, yeah.
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 Or any of this like Jailer didn't have that much line of sight stuff, but it was the whole raid getting out of line of sight in an area that was just not very easy to tell if you're out of line of sight.
Oh my god.
Where on
Yeah.
Neltharion, you just go around a corner and hide behind a wall. Like it's very obvious that you're out of line of sight.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Um,
Yeah, no. It's yeah, I just that's the only thing I know from like testing and some of the people talking about it. Like I said, I haven't read much about Echo just yet, but
yeah. So like the thing, like I think Scarred on Heroic is just gonna be you YOLO things pretty much. Like
yeah.
you do your trap drops around the outside. You cross the room when the tactical devastation happens. You just keep doing that until the boss dies. And
Yeah.
as long as you just like kill the golems in time and use them to clear out any bad traps, you're just. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think the intention of boss number 6 on Mythic is for the strategy to be just YOLO, which is
Yeah.
why I am not looking forward to that boss because of the random traps kind of making it so that it's hard to actually have a coherent strategy because of how those can
Eh,
really mess you up.
yeah, I mean, it seems to me like knowing that they're random like that, and this is sort of what I thought about. Like, I don't do the strat stuff, but like at least in my mind, it made sense to like always move the boss towards a trap, always move the boss towards the random trap, and that way, and back clear the ones you drop on the boss with your first golems, and that way you always sort of are stacking the next boss traps near existing traps, and you sort of always know where your like area of denial is, right?
Yeah.
Um, and sort of stack up their denial in like certain areas of the room while trying to keep other areas clear. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, that the random traps sort of throw a little bit of that for a loop. So,
Yeah. Yep. For sure.
um, well, cool. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm almost pretty much set with with all of heroic, and like I said, we'll probably do 2 or 3 bosses on mythic. I'll probably prepare for assault amalgamation and Kazara. We haven't really talked about Kazara, but like I'll be completely honest with you. This is the one thing about Kazara that I thought was hilarious was like I was reading through the dungeon journal and I was like, okay, this seems pretty simple. There's got to be something I'm missing, right?
Yeah.
Like watched a video or two. I was like, okay, it doesn't seem like a lot. Red mythic trap. I'm like, there's literally like 2 mechanics. It's like at a certain percentage, the boss explodes for raid wide damage, and then there's like a knockback, but like that's it. Like you have to like trail some fire and don't cross it over, but like that's not really like a healer thing. It's just like that's
Yeah.
like the one of the
I
mechanics you have
mean,
to worry about.
that's
So
like the portals and the lasers are the main thing for not healers.
yeah,
But
yeah.
as far as healing stuff goes, yeah, there's nothing else.
It's like at a certain percentage does a bunch of damage, just get ready for it. And then like maybe you cool down the knockbacks, but even then, like I don't think that's more just don't position yourself to get knocked in a puddle and you'll be fine. So
The knockback does have a dot on it, but I don't
yeah.
know. Like, I'm not doing healing cooldowns for the first probably 4 bosses on heroic. We're just gonna YOLO them.
Mhm.
Um, but then like for Rashok onward, I'm doing healing cooldowns pretty much.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what I'm doing for Mythic at this point. We're gonna see. We may YOLO healing cooldowns for Kazara.
I think you can. I mean, I think as long as you have everything for like the shield breaks, you're pretty much fine. And then
Yeah,
see how hard that first dot hits, and if you need something for the next one, you can just pull it in. So, um, but cool. Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited. I love this is sort of the best time to sort of figure out what boss will be cool, what bosses will not be cool. And the fact that Blizzard needs to stop putting line of sight mechanics in the game 'cause it's the dumbest ability ever, dumbest like mechanic ever. So,
I do. So
um,
one last thing before we move on. Magmorax had a random puddle mechanic, kind of analogous to the random traps on Skarn, which
mhm.
got removed.
Yeah, now it's just it hits what there's like 3 targeted
There's
people, right? Or
and there's
5?
also like Armageddon soaks now
Yeah.
that replaced it. So like if you soak the Armageddon, you just don't get a puddle. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Nice. Nice. But cool, yeah, I'm excited to kick off on Tuesday and we will be I'll be watching a bunch of streams Tuesday to figure out how heroic goes and then we'll hopefully by Thursday we'll like somebody will be pulling some mythic bosses, but we'll
yeah,
see.
yeah.
We'll see. Um well, cool. All right. Well, then maybe so that's sort of one of our big topics. Yeah, doing a little bit of prep review and it's sort of the new raid, but we'll circle back a little bit now and talk a little bit maybe about some news for the past week that came out. So a little bit out of order tonight. Um, we are recording this out of order. It's Monday night or Sunday night.
Yeah.
So everything's a little bit crazy. So yeah, so a couple of quick news stories that came out this week. First up is there's been some data mining, but not of the 10.1 data mining variety. Well, sort of, but also of the patch 3.4.2 data mining, which is of course what classic Wrath of Lich King is on. There's been a new game mode added into a couple of the DB2 files. Basically, there is a what they call a configuration categories, which are basically just a list of the different server types that Blizzard maintains. So you'll see things like classic era, like RP, US West, US East, classic, things like that. But there's a new entry called hardcore in that list, which points to the potential of official hardcore servers coming to some version of World of Warcraft. I don't know if it's going to be retail, more than likely will be classic because the scene's definitely big there. But yeah, I for one am pretty excited about this. It's funny, in my limited WoW playing time I've done for the past couple months, I've been slowly leveling a hardcore character in classic.
Really,
Um,
what level are you up to?
yeah. I am level 22, so as I can say
Nice.
very slowly. It's a hunter too, so I'm kind of cheating, we'll say. Um,
Do a rogue.
no, it sounds terrible. Um, but no, it's interesting that Blizzard sort of adding this. So the hardcore community it's been sort of getting pretty big lately. Like sort of at least on like if you take like Twitch as a metric for this, right? Like there's
Right.
been a lot more people streaming their hardcore stuff, a lot more like Twitter conversations about it. So interesting that Blizzard's listening, and yeah, maybe we'll see official hardcore servers. It's funny. I've never played hardcore in any other game. Like, don't play like any of the like the ARPGs where this typically comes from, like Diablo or
Yeah.
PoE is hardcore. But I'll play WoW hardcore just because like I don't know. I feel like just a little bit easier, right, at the end of the day. So,
Yeah.
but it's been fun. The add-on they have for it is hilarious because you can say, I don't know if just a little background, right? But right now the community built a hardcore add-on that sort of like has a bunch of the rules. It takes screenshots, so like you can get on their official leaderboards if you ever hit 60 as hardcore or whatever. But it also has a death feed in it. So every time you can set up so everyone sometimes someone dies, you get like a big alert in the middle of your screen.
Oh
And
no.
just the amount like and it's funny because like a lot of them are like sub 15, like level 15 people, but like
Yeah.
every once in a while you get that like level 49 in Feralus like
Oh
maze that just
no.
dies.
Oh
And you just know
no.
that they're just like, oh, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
I
So
actually, if I were gonna do that, I would probably go back and want to do that on the actual classic era servers,
mhm.
which is like a weird thing to, I don't know. I just like,
That's where I'm actually doing. That's where my
okay,
hunter is on
nice,
yeah, is on
nice.
classic era, yeah.
Yeah. So for a long time I leveled characters in WoW using a variant of the old Iron Man rules. So
Okay.
those rules, if you're not familiar with them, the original one, like they were made in Cataclysm, right? The original ones were that you couldn't pick a talent tree. You couldn't get like the guaranteed ability from that. This was before that like locked off 90% of your abilities. So
Mhm.
it was not as bad as it sounded. It basically was just that like a bunch of specs had a extremely overpowered ability
Yeah.
that you got at low level from that, like aim shot for hunters that just one shot a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and you could not use any gear that was higher quality than common. And
Oh. Interesting.
you no group content, no battlegrounds. Although battlegrounds is it would be you're trying not to die. Battlegrounds are not the way to go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and of course, no dying. That last role is the main one that I kind of ignored because I actually wanted to level the characters. So I would, always try not to die, but especially as the game went on, it became progressively harder to actually play under that. Um,
Yeah.
in WoD, when they made item level like a real internally, item level became like a real hidden stat. Um, there were some very fun breakpoints when you crossed expansions, and if your item level was too low, it was like your gear just like turned off.
That's hilarious.
Um, yeah. So I'm actually interested in doing that. It's just a matter of time, you know.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
maybe I'll oh, what server are you on in Classic here? Maybe
So everyone has to be on Bloodsail Buccaneer. So that's like
okay.
where the big hardcore community is. So yeah, like not you don't have to be, but I think to like follow the add-on rules and like that community
Right.
rules, you have to be there and have the add-on installed or whatever. But yeah, it's yeah, that's where everybody is. So it's an RP server. Um,
So you
but I
can
don't
all
think anybody
RP as
RPs.
hardcore players.
I guess I don't know why they did it there, but no, yeah, it was that's where everybody is. But yeah, it's been fun to sort of do like I will be completely honest with you, it's very casual. Like I'll do like a quarter or half a level, like maybe level for like 30 to 30 minutes to an hour, and then be like, okay, that's enough for now because classic leveling is rough to like put any sort of actual time into. But no,
I mean,
it's
it
been
would
fun
be
to
a little bit
dabble.
more challenging if you weren't playing Hunter.
Yeah, that's well, that's for my first character. I wanted to see like if I could like how far I could make it using like essentially the easiest class to do it
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
Um,
Man, ooh, I'm not sure if I would do a rogue or if I would do a druid. I have a like level 58 druid or something that I never finished leveling.
nice. Yeah, druid low level would be interesting. I think once you get into like the 20s and 30s, I think
Right.
you'd probably be pretty safe. But
Yeah.
like early druid would be interesting. So there are a surprising number of deaths sub level 10, by the way. Like that death feed is just
I'm
constant. Like
not surprised.
every
How many of
yeah.
them are like night elves going into that stupid cave system, the barrows in the
Oh, I
first
don't know.
zone?
Yeah. Uh it's funnily enough, it's mostly mages, but so and they don't. I don't think they. I guess if you mouse over, you could know what race they were.
Okay.
But yeah, it's mostly it's funny. It's mostly mages
Well,
that I see
if they're
time.
mages, they're not night elves because night elves could not be mages in classic. So
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, that's been a fun little distraction. We'll say probably won't get much leveling done in the next couple weeks,
Yeah.
but maybe we'll see. Um, Couple other just news stories coming out. Blizzard announced a Discord community program. Only for Europe though, which is interesting, but there's a Discord community program. Basically allows you to submit your Discord community for like inclusion in Blizzard's official program. It says you'll get like community managers to come and visit your server, have a presence there. You can do like events and giveaways, potentially the ability to do some developer QAs, and maybe an easier way to provide feedback. Um, so you can apply if you run I guess I think you have to have at least 100 people in the server and be making Blizzard content. Um, but yeah, you can apply for the program. They have some very interesting agreement, like terms and conditions. So I would say read those. I'm not gonna get into the nitty gritty here, I don't think, but just read through them and make the decision yourself before you sign up.
This is one of those things where I've seen a lot of legal commentary from people that are not lawyers, which is
Yeah,
always fun. Um, but some of the terms and conditions of this may actually be unenforceable in the EU, which is
yeah.
very funny because this is currently EU only.
I hadn't heard that. A couple of the clauses I read were eh, just like very easy to be the Blizzard just be like pull your membership whenever they wanted because like
Yeah,
invariably like you're going to run afoul of some of those rules like in any server that has any amount of people in it. So
yeah. There's
yeah.
a binding arbitration clause in there
Oh, nice.
that is, to my knowledge, like again, I'm not a lawyer, but
Yeah.
I've been told that that's not like legally enforceable in the EU.
Gotcha.
Um, which is just very funny to me because it is legally enforceable in the US,
Yeah.
but you can't do this in the US. It's for EU servers right now.
Yeah. So maybe I mean maybe it's coming across the pond. We'll see. I will tell you that I don't think Peak is gonna currently Peak can't be a part of it because none of the admins are EU folks. And the server's sort of global, so it's a little weird. But yeah. Blizzard released Discord. I don't know why, but cool. You can have some CMs join you, do some giveaways.
The
Um,
I mean the there's some like actually cool stuff potentially from this, which is like getting easier access to developers for interviews and things like that.
yeah.
That seems more geared towards like content creator kind of discords than class discords, but that would be really cool. And then having a clearer channel for feedback, you know, wouldn't hurt. One of the things that I like, one of the comments that I definitely saw from the people in the circles that I run is that at this point, people that have been around the like theory and like sims and all this stuff, I'll usually just pick up a couple of contacts.
It's not, at least for like the class discords, I feel like it's not going to be a problem. Like this isn't something that's going to give like
Yeah,
your any of the major class discords more access to Blizzard than they already have, right? Maybe it's a different avenue in, but
yeah,
I'll be completely honest with you. You can basically probably almost guarantee that any class Discord has access to a class developer's ear, right? Someone in that Discord
yeah.
will. So yeah. But yeah, they're launching it. It'll be interesting to see what they actually put out. They'll have like a list of all the approved servers, so we'll see what that means. Cool. And then the only final sort of news story before we get a little bit into the new zone and the actual content that was released this week, instead of our theoretical thoughts on how the raid will go. Blizzard did confirm that you can only get up to chapter 3 this week. So chapters 4 and 5 of the story content will be next week. So it looks like a typical Blizzard fashion. They're, well, not typical Blizzard fashion, but in general, they're slowly sort of dripping out the story content over the next couple weeks.
Am I?
So
I
what's
thought
up?
4 was out, but 5 was not. Well, I'm
Uh,
reading the post now,
yeah,
rereading the post. And it says exactly what you said, but I feel like I'm crazy now because
yeah.
I
No,
feel like I did 4. Maybe it's just like it's now on the 4th line because that's the next thing, but I can't do it yet.
yeah, no, yeah. hope. I mean, maybe you did. I know that when I after I read this and I checked even earlier this week, I only had 3 of whatever the I don't even. I
Yeah,
don't think there's
okay.
even more than 5 chapters. So I only had 3 done. Sure. So, um, but yeah.
Yeah.
So Blizzard confirmed that for us. So don't thinking you're missing quests out there.
If you are trying to do raid stuff or crafting stuff, the list of things that are like mandatory to do this week is very short. Rating wise, you just want to make sure that you get the quests done. There's a quest that gets you a full spark of Shadowflame this week. You want to do that. Normally it's half a spark per week. So you there's
Mhm.
literally an item that's like half of a spark. And so you get one of those every week. So every other week you get a full spark.
Yep.
First week, aka this week, you can get a full one. There is catch up though. That's actually one of the other things that I think is on our list for uh
Yep.
future stories. I would just quietly bump this up. um is there is alt catch up for these.
Yep.
Blizzard did confirm it in a blue post, specifically that there is a quote higher chance for sparks to drop from Mythic Plus end of dungeon chests, PvP wins, the Loamme world boss, or I guess Zaralek Caverns world boss. Um, the first time you kill a boss of a Fiasco assault, which those start next week.
Yep.
Um, and there's another public event called Researchers Under Fire, also starts next week.
Stupid.
Niffin cave dives, which are available this week, and then Aberrus raid bosses, which again next week. Which I mean, the fact that a bunch of these are tied to this stuff that opens next week is not a big deal because you literally cannot fall behind this
Yeah.
to benefit from. Okay, actually, that's not entirely true. I have heard tell that there's some jank way to make your character eligible to get half a spark this week extra. I have no idea how.
That seems a bit too much for me, I'll say.
Um,
Um,
yeah. Anyway, so that's exciting.
yeah.
But like that's if you do that, you're all like that's all you can really do for raid prep. You could grind flight stones. You don't need to. I just did the campaign and I have 1600.
Yeah. I did all like I have a problem where I see exclamation points on my map. I need to go check them out. So I've done
Mm-hmm.
all most of the side story stuff. And I have 2000. I actually had to stop because at this point your cap is 2000.
Yep.
So I can't get any more. So I've had to stop doing that. But yeah, flight stones are not an issue at all. If you just do the campaign quests, you get a ton, and then
Yeah.
there's a bunch extra for pretty much doing anything in the zone. So but yeah,
Um,
good that they added this catch up stuff, which is nice. So
so yeah, I mean, even if you don't get that done this week, you're not going to be that far behind. Um,
yeah.
the other thing, if you are interested in crafting, you want to make sure that you get your crafting quests done. There's an intro quest for barter bricks. I don't know if it's intro or just weekly or just an intro quest, but it gives you 10. You buy recipes with these. So the new
Yep.
recipes from the Loam Niffin people are bought with barter bricks. You get 10 from this quest from Ponzo, and then there are an additional 10 from weekly quests in Valdraken that are at just the regular profession crafting area. Note, a couple people in my guild ran into this, including me. Those quests are not listed in the profession category in your quest log. So if you
Yep.
are looking for them, you cannot find them. Check the Zaralek Caverns category.
Yeah. Also, they're just from the same profession vendor. So like I haven't been doing those quests lately because I don't really engage with professions much. But yeah, I didn't realize they were from the same quest
Yeah,
giver. So I didn't pick those up until
there's a
like yeah,
new
Thursday or
like
Friday.
Niffin dude in that area too that can give them as well.
Yeah, but wait. Yeah, but he's in the same little circle
Yeah,
that
he's
the
in the same
other
circle.
others.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's literally like to me just flying over it. I was like, oh, same quest. I'm never gonna do.
No, new
Um,
quests. New
yeah,
quests.
definitely new quests. Um, but yeah, bunch of new zone stuff. I mean, I don't. It sounds like you went through the whole campaign in the new zone. Um, how how have you been enjoying it? I guess like what are your thoughts on sort of the new way they're doing I guess events and like rares and everything. I guess rares are very similar to some of the other stuff, but I have noticed that every rare, I don't know if this is new, but every rare has a spawn timer where they become active on the map, and then it's about 2 to 3 minutes after that you can actually then attack it. They have like a charge up animation, or they're like have a like zoom in, like somebody will scream in the zone like such and such is rumbles in the darkness, and then like two
Yeah.
minutes later thing comes out of the
Um,
cave.
I think that that's just a nice quality of life thing, honestly. Like going back to like Mechagon, right? People would do a shout in the zone when mobs spawned, and people made add-ons to do it automatically. So in practice, you kind of had it, but without the grace period to get there, and
Yeah.
that led to a lot of people trying to get out of combat as fast as they could and fly over there. Well, not fly, but get over there and miss
You
the
could fly
kill.
you could fly a Mechagnome, couldn't you?
Not initially, right?
I guess late you
Later,
could, yeah, 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 yeah,
later,
you're right, you're
yeah.
right, early you couldn't, yeah.
Um, and what that, at least for me, devolved into when I needed to get my rares done for the daily to get my stupid Azurite essence. Um,
Love this.
what that devolved into was not doing anything that would put me in combat so that I could just be on my mount for when a rare spawns.
Yeah, you did that the wrong way. What you needed to do was do what I did, which was zone hop, which was basically join groups and get different instances and sit it where a rare spawn, and hopefully you got it.
Yeah, I mean, well, so I because I was like not actively playing for a lot of that. I was
Yeah,
just like tapped out doing other things. But
gotcha.
yeah,
That's fair. That's fair.
it was just like
Yeah,
it encouraged not playing or abusing the like server sharding and zone hopping and all that stuff. And neither of
yeah,
those are really like the way that it should, like the game shouldn't encourage you to do either of those things. So
exactly.
I think it's a good thing that they did this. The only real loss in my mind is that it did remove some of the fun from zone chat of like people getting really on each other's ass about starting mobs early.
Yeah, lots of fights about like, why'd you kill it? Why didn't you let me tap it? Or like a lot of times people, at least once you
Like
could fly,
somebody,
this is
somebody,
even worse.
yeah,
Yeah.
somebody would like start a like somebody would announce like such and such spawned, and then somebody else just like flies in and starts fighting it, and you see a second message in chat. Well, somebody just pulled it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's dead now. So
Yeah,
yeah. No, it's yeah, it's definitely that's a nice quality of life thing. Also like the new like events, I guess they're events, but they're like mini events that sort of spawn fairly regularly are interesting. They have like little horn icons on your map. I don't know what
hmm
they're specifically called, but those are fun. They're basically just like little short, like almost like not even world quests. They're like short events. So very much like like the community like pot event or like the soup event, right?
yeah,
In Azure Span or something like that. Just think of like something like that, but like on a much smaller scale where it's like one thing you do and then you're done.
yeah,
So it's been fun chasing those. Those have been cool. There's been some interesting ones. If there's one where you have to like keep up a moth a couple times, then
yeah.
once you do it enough, the
I
moth
actually
like
did that
gives
one
you a bag.
yesterday. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's fun to just like sort of randomly fly over that stuff and see it. And the zone itself is surprisingly fun to fly around. I'll say, like
yeah,
more than I thought it would. Like it's big enough like that you don't feel like very claustrophobic, but like also not like so big that it seems like just like an open air. Like doesn't seem like a cavern. So,
yeah.
um,
I definitely
that's
have
it.
crashed into like an edge in the ceiling, like flying too close to the ceiling, and like lost
Oh,
all of my momentum
nice.
because
Yeah,
like the
I've
ceiling's
hit.
not perfectly smooth, so like you can get caught on something there. So I guess word of warning: don't fly literally at the ceiling. There's no reason for you to do that,
Yeah,
but I did it, and I mean,
you hit stuff. I've definitely
I
hit stuff.
paid for my hubris.
Yeah, I've definitely done that where like I've also like been in like the corner of something and taken off and then like use my speed burst ability, just run right into like what like I always get like a stalactite or
Stalactite,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming down, so that's been fun. It does have the one mechanic I absolutely hate, and I think it's on the western side of the zone. There's an area where you can't fly, or you get, like, shot down, you get, like, a stacking buff
Oh yeah.
or
Okay.
debuff or whatever, and then they shoot you down and they start attacking you. I hate that. It's stupid. But that's, like, the elite area, I'll say, of the zone, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of annoying, but
Um, One thing that actually stood out to me is that a lot of the quests were, I felt like the actual like quest writing and everything was a um really good, like
yeah.
noticeably good, noticeably better than even like Dragonflight has had some good stuff, but noticeably better than even a lot of the existing Dragonflight quests. So
Yeah.
that was cool. The Niffin people were not something that I went in expecting to like at all because they just are weird little mole rats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Oh, good though.
no, they don't.
Okay. Fair
But
enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
but the way that they are presented is actually just really effective, and so I actually really enjoyed it. Enjoyed going through the campaign,
Hmm.
and doing some of the side quests, and yeah. So that was cool. I didn't expect the like quest writing to be as good as it was.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So
I would agree. Yeah, no, they did a really good job with a lot of like the writing, but then also a lot of the side stuff is good too. So I think that
yeah,
writing, like that sort of like I guess attention to detail or however you want to describe it, sort of carries through even to the side quests in the zone, which is cool. So
yeah,
um no, yeah, all in all, I mean it's an interesting new take on a zone. It's of course a new zone, so it's a bunch of repeatable like kill a bunch of rares, get a new
yeah,
currency, get a new there's a new renown right to farm and all that fun stuff.
yeah,
But no, it's yeah, it's I think it's a fine zone. The raids in it, so the raids, in the northern part looks pretty ominous and sort of like foreboding as you sort of fly around the zone. You can sort of see it pretty much from anywhere. So, um, but yeah, no, it's a cool new zone. Getting into it's interesting. The first flight down, they definitely delivered on. Well, oh, okay. I don't know if you did that. I don't know if you thought about this, but like the first time you go down, like the opening quests, there is a loading bar to get into the zone. Like because you like
you get
go down
ported
the
into like a
hall.
scenario zone. Yeah,
Exactly. And so when that happened, I was like, those Blizzard mother effers, like they like lied to me. There is a loading zone. And I was like, it's because and I was like, well, maybe it's because it's so overloaded right now. They're like loading us in, but no, once I realized what actually happened, yeah, it's
yeah,
you get zoned into like a scenario version of like that part of the cavern or whatever.
yeah.
So
There is also actually multiple entrances to the zone.
yep.
So it is actually like underneath a good chunk of the Onaran Plains, which happened to matter to me because one of the vendors that I needed to go to pick up something for one of the profession quests happened to be on that end of the Onaran Plains.
Oh, really? Nice.
So I didn't
Nice.
realize that, so I like hearthed to Valdrakken and I flew over there and I was like, oh wait a second, I can go back in the caves. I don't have to go back to like that corner of Thaladrassus and Waking Shores to get back into the caverns. I can just go here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a couple different entrances, which is nice. Yeah, yeah, it's a cool new concept for a zone. Like rather than just fly to another island, right? That magically appears like this thing you sort of unearth underneath. So yeah, it's been fun. And then maybe one final thing on the zone, and then we'll talk, maybe move into like some of the hot fixes and stuff that got changed over the past week is there are a huge amount of like things like chests to open, right? Like and a lot of them aren't very clear as to what you need to do. So like a lot of them require like
Yes.
a key that they just say like locked by like wooden key, and you're like, well, where the hell do I get a wooden key from?
You mentioned the moth as well, the like
Yeah,
floating, the like moth that's attempting to fly. That one shows up as a chest.
yeah,
So I was like running around like, where is this stupid chest? What am I missing? And then just accidentally bumped the moth, and like it did the bounce and then played an animation, and it's like, oh,
yeah.
okay. It took a little bit for me to figure out that I was supposed to like keep it, like I was supposed to interact with it, and then from there it was like pretty obvious that you're supposed to try and like bounce it. But yeah,
Yeah, nice. Yeah, but yeah, there's a bunch of different chests in there, and I guess there's one specific one that requires a very old item to open. So there's one that actually requires an Onyxia scale cloak, which if you aren't familiar with that cloak itself, it's a cloak that was actually put in the game in classic, and you needed it to do the Neltharion encounter in shoot, the second raid. I can't remember what's the name of
Blackwing lair.
Blackwing Layer, yeah, Blackwing Layer,
Yep.
BWL, Blackwing Layer. So you did the cloak for one of the abilities that Neltharion did. Well, you needed if you didn't cheese that part of the encounter. There was a way to do the fight without the cloak equipped, but you needed it equipped so you could live one of his abilities that he cast. And so now in the caverns, there's a chest you need to open that's in like an area where it's like surrounded by like a certain like chest that you can't get through this like surrounding without the cloak being equipped. So equip the cloak, you can walk up to the chest and then loot it basically. And it has I think a toy inside of it um that that basically turns you into Shadowflame, which is the theme of this patch.
I bet that if you go and you pull up the price chart of this item, you will see a very large spike in the value of Onyxia scale cloaks. They are currently going for around 5,000 gold in both NA and EU.
Oh Jesus, yeah, they're super cheap. Before that, I wonder if I still have mine on my warlock. I could go and get. I will say that just as a little bit of a history lore thing here. You used to be able to get so the way that the old Neltharion or Neth fight worked is after you did the first phase, the boss would come down and basically shadow flame the entire platform that you were on. And so that's why you needed the cloak. Because if you didn't have the cloak, you got a huge doubt on you and you died.
Yeah.
However, you could hide in these little cubbies where like mobs spawned. So if you got deep enough in the cubby, particularly if you were a gnome, you could get like underneath a kraken in a rock. The shadow flame didn't hit you, so you didn't need to equip your cloak, and that's how. If you cared about doing extra damage, because like the Onyxia scale cloak is technically like a damage downgrade for almost every class, or was, um, you could hide in there and not need to wear your cloak. Um, but yeah, that's where it comes from. And yeah, it's cool that they've added like weird interactions like that to the game. So
It is very
very excited
on
about it.
theme. Like you mentioned, the raid is very like Shadow Flame, Shadow Flame, Shadow Flame, and the raid zone, the zone, sorry, surrounding the raid also has a lot of that. People are like,
Mhm.
Shadow Flame, such danger.
Yeah, exactly.
So having a little like thing where if you go and you equip this old cloak that reads, let me read this, protects the wearer from being fully engulfed by Shadow Flame. Um, I don't know. That's kind of neat. It's a nice callback.
Yeah, no, it's very cool that they've added that back in there. So like I said, I'm a huge like we've always talked about this. Like it's a huge it's always huge when Blizzard sort of pulls back old content, right? Or old stuff. It's something like this is pretty like even if you didn't want to spend the 5k gold to get the cloak, like the actual materials for the cloak are very cheap. Like you just have to have a scale of Onyxia, which you get from Skitty Onyxia, which takes all of 30 seconds to do now.
Right.
And and uh and like one tailoring item. So easy peasy.
Yeah.
Um cool.
All right.
So anything else from the zone, or do we want to go through some of these changes they make? So there's been a lot of tuning changes.
Let's go through these
Um,
hotfixes. Yeah.
all right. So I think the one thing, just as long as you're okay, I wasn't going to go through a lot of the Mythic Plus or Raid encounter tuning changes, just because
Yeah.
I think they're less important. We haven't seen this stuff yet. We don't actually know the impact of like what they're adjusting. But just so everybody's aware, there have been a ton of changes to Mythic Plus encounters and boss fights and trash and everything there, along with updates. So I think at least I saw changes to at least 4 bosses in the
Yeah.
raid.
So,
Um,
just real quick on those, most of them are just shifting damage around. Like one
okay.
thing does less damage, something else does more damage. Um, no like big overhaul of mechanics or anything like that. There's no like Council of Blood at the last minute getting rebuilt behind the scenes, or Halandra's getting rebuilt behind the scenes. Nothing that
Hmm.
indicates that. So, just like shifting damage around, and like you said, since we haven't actually done these fights, it's yeah, like technically numbers went up, some other numbers went down. Those are buffs and nerfs, but not on the version of the boss any of us have done. So
Exactly, and it's tough to like theoretically, at least for us, to like theoretically to try and figure out if that the fight's now harder or easier, right? It's just not anything we need to go through.
yeah.
But cool. But beyond that, there was a couple of changes to items, items, and sort of enchants and stuff like that that I wanted to go through. So the first tip is they have reverted a change, not reverted, but they've made updates to a change they made last week, which was they nerfed a couple or really a lot of different embellishments last week. And as a part of those changes, they also stopped them from scaling for with versatility. So what Blizzard was trying to sort of account for was the fact that there are certain abilities your specs have that double dip into embellishments and sort of proc more damage. Typically, it was a lot more damage. Healing wasn't as affected. So Blizzard basically went back in with rather than like a hacksaw, more of a scalpel here, and basically changed it so that certain abilities are no longer procking certain embellishments, and then also adding versatility scaling back into the embellishments themselves. So um, good change that comes into play. They probably have missed a couple of abilities, so maybe a few classes embellishments are a little bit stronger, but um,
Weapons
but
of Order is
oh really?
still a universal damage amp. It is not whitelisted. It just like when you fully stack it, they take 38% more damage from you. Does not
Across the
matter
board.
what. There is no so that said, it applies to everything. There's no like weird gearing things around it. The extent of the weird gearing things is like, if you have an unused trinket, you want it to line up with your Weapons of Order damage window with the full damage amp. Um,
Mhm.
so it's not warping anything really, because generally speaking, we would just use those trinkets anyway. It's stuff like Grief Torch, right? Like we would use Grief Torch anyway. It doesn't
Mhm.
need Weapons of Order to make it good. So I don't think it's necessarily problematic. It does prop up damage for us in interesting ways.
Nice, nice.
Um,
Everyone loves a little bit more damage, right?
yeah. Uh, so that is one that is currently like very notable as an exception to this. However, most of the stuff that they touched are things that buffed some elemental damage type. And so you see stuff like Fiery Demise for Vengeance Demon Hunter that buffs fire
Mhm.
damage dealt. And that meant that certain embellishments that did fire damage were better for them because of that. And on the one hand, that's a neat bit of like texture from playing that class. On the other hand, that makes tuning those like generic effects that everybody has access to a little bit more challenging, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't use those things, then it makes the next best things a lot worse. I don't know. I I didn't. I'm curious what you think of this, but I never really minded the elemental damage stuff, like applying to, trinkets and things like
Yeah.
that.
No, I mean, I don't think I particularly cared either. I think I will say I did care when certain trinkets scaled better with certain class abilities. Like there used to be a time where a lot of priest abilities like damage trinkets wouldn't. I believe it was damage trinkets typically like would also proc atonement, right? Or like
Yeah,
buffs to that
yeah.
stuff would like proc additional healing. So that's
Atonement did get pretty silly. Yeah,
yeah, I think from there, like I would care about that type of stuff. And it's probably why they do this is that like I'm not a DPS player. I don't think you're primarily a DPS player. So for us, it's like, whatever. So you get a little bit more damage, helps the
yeah,
entire raid, everybody's fine. But I think if you're like a pure DPS player, it's sort of annoying that like your class doesn't have access to that damage type. So like you can't benefit from the fact that like, oh, this thing scales
yeah.
slightly better, right? But
I think it puts them in a hard spot for items that are actually like powerful,
yeah.
where you have an item that one class, like the poster child of this is spec masteries that increase elemental damage, like a Frost DK mastery that just increases frost damage dealt.
Hmm.
If you have a trinket that does frost damage and it's not operating off of a whitelist, now that trinket just does 60% more damage for a frost DK, and 60% is a really big number.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think that's where they just have to be consistent and say like to have like that just hard fast rule of like you don't get to double dip, right? Based
Yeah.
on your type of elemental damage and these things. So um but yeah, no, they've gone through and sort of updated that, which I think is yep. At the end of the day, I don't care either way, but I think it for the game it's a good thing. So
Yeah, I think for the smaller effects like the embellishments, you lose a little bit of the like texture of the classes when
mhm,
you take the something that says, increases fire damage dealt, and it doesn't actually increase all fire damage dealt. You don't really like it's those items basically no longer deal fire damage. They deal
mhm,
damage that is listed as fire, but it's just like generic damage now.
yeah,
So I don't know. I think it is probably better for tuning, making tuning more tractable for them, but not as much fun to think about for me,
that's
basically.
true.
Basically.
That is true. That is true.
But I think that all breaks down as soon as you hit stuff like, Frosty K Mastery, Frost Mage Mastery, that kind of thing. Um, and some certain trinkets that interact with those. So, or would if they.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of crafted item changes, the Spore Tender weapon enchant ate a enormous nerf.
Yeah, this is one that flew under the radar, I think, because I don't think people realized how good this was.
I definitely was
um,
already here. I was hearing about this thing well before. Not necessarily on the power level thing, because there's a lot of stuff of people just like you don't know where things are gonna be tuned at when they make it from PTR onto live.
mhm.
But like right before this went live, I was hearing quite a bit about like how much secondary stats you could get from this. It
Yeah, I mean
it, it was a lot.
yeah, and it was a very solid proc rate chance, and the fact that you put this on all your healers and it's a noticeable DPS increase to your raid, right? Like this would have been the enchant to run regardless, right? Like and until you got to even like I mean, I don't even know if this is like a good thing, but like you would have run this at probably any level of progression, whether you're a world 1,000 guild or like a world 50 guild, right?
Yeah,
It was that good. So yeah, it ate a massive nerf, which to be fair brings it in line with pretty much every other healer enchant. I'll say like right now the big debate is between like most healers run Sophic, right, for the primary stat increase for themselves, or they can run Spore Tender, and essentially you now have a choice, right? Like the choice is essentially like, do you want more damage on your raid, or do you think you need more individual healing from yourself, right?
yeah,
Um, and so it's not the locked in like you will always run this type enchant, but if you think your raid needs the damage, or you can like you think your healing's fine enough and you can give the raid more damage, I'd say you run this enchant
yeah.
100%. So
It's
definitely more of a choice. So
yeah, yeah. It's definitely more contextual now. The nerf was, to reiterate, 72%. That was
yeah.
how overtuned this was. Um, but I'm glad it got nerfed. I'm still a little bit concerned about it because there are things like if the buff doesn't clear when you pull a boss, um, then you can do things like stack up the buff from all 5 healers on a player before you pull.
Hmm.
You think of like a warlock or a mage, so they're doing their big damage burst window immediately on pull with what is still, if you have it from 5 players, 5,000 of their highest secondary stat for 12 seconds.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, I that's just like a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so I am not looking forward to that. I hope that the buff does actually. I didn't raid this week, so people are. I don't know if it's like this anymore, but I hope that the buff clears when combat starts because that would just fix most of the issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, so I actually don't know. We didn't run this on Tuesday. So it costs 25 bricks, which is sort of pretty crazy.
Yeah,
But
it's one of the recipes that costs bricks.
mhm,
The thing that a lot of people are doing is there's a a chanting. Now there's an alchemy one that you need bricks for the transmute, I think is what it is. And people are like, this transmute is going to be the big limiting factor of, crafting XYZ. Let's spend all of our bricks on that. I think the market on
Okay.
that might crash because everybody doing that, but
Yeah, well, the end with that transmute, there was a little bit of a way to get more transmutes than you typically could.
this stupid bug
Yeah,
again. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
This actually is a very similar thing happened with alchemy um, research in 10.0. If you remember talking about that, I think we talked about it on the podcast.
yeah,
Where
yeah,
if you like logged out, it would reset your thing, and so you could just log back in and do it again. And a bunch of people did it on accident without realizing, and
yeah,
a few people went way beyond that and just spammed the thing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there is that is back with this enchant, or this transmute. I'm sorry. So, but yeah, no, I think Sport Tender. I mean, I will more than likely run it. I'll talk to my other healers, but I think it's probably something good to like. I would say like as a group within your guild, as a group of healers, you should make a decision if you're going to run it all or not run it at all. Basically, I think it really has the most value if you all four or five, however many healers you have, all four or five healers are running it. So,
I think it will also come down a little bit to what the pain points this tier are, right? You look at a
yeah,
boss like Rashok, and it could go either way. It could be a pretty intense healing check, or it could be a pretty intense damage check. It
mhm,
it in some sense it can be both, but there will be one that is harder than the other. And so you will want to pick your poison. Like, are you going to choose to make the damage check a little bit easier or to make the healing check easier? And there will be like a reasonably clear way to make that choice.
yeah,
So we'll
yeah,
see.
exactly. That makes sense. But cool, yeah. So that was sort of the big, we'll say, like enchanting fix for this week, or I guess like profession fix. Then Blizzard did do a pass over most of the trinkets in the raid, essentially just removing the hasted RPPM from them and made them just flat RPPM trinkets. So in general, we'll say a nerf basically to the trinkets, but if you didn't run a haste heavy build anyway, technically you're getting similar proc rates. So they did, as a part of this, do make it changes to I guess three of the trinkets beyond this. The Screaming Black Dragon scale, which is I think it's from the first boss,
Yeah.
um, which is just a sort of grants you a ton of crit and leech on a like whenever you on like a proc basis, right? Um, that had its crit value or the amount of crit it gives you increased by 12.8% specifically. And then also Rashok's Molten Heart had the healing from its proc increased by another 12% also. Um, Rashok's Molten Heart still very, very good as a healing trinket, like absolutely disgustingly
Our
good.
healers have already been talking to us
Like
about it. About it, like, okay, how are we deciding who gets the Rashox? Is like,
like if
ask me when
like
we get
the
one.
like just it's the only like just if you could equip one trinket for the rest of your life, like you equip this, it's just really good. And then finally, the only other change that wasn't a hasted one, but the enduring dreadplate trinket, which I think this is a tank trinket, right? Had its
Technically,
damage had its damage increased by
um,
18%, so for its proc, which
yeah, technically it's a tank trinket. Practically, the only way anybody uses this is if it's broken with stagger.
gotcha.
It is not, to my knowledge, broken with stagger, but that is the only way anybody uses this trinket. Not a good trinket.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Um But cool, yeah. So some trinket tuning, like really not tuning passes, but just really removing the hasted nature of the proc rate on a bunch of trinkets, which is fair. Um, but um, but yeah, that's a big trinket pass. Blizzard also this is a new one for me. I haven't seen this in other expansions, at least or other raid tiers, at least this late, we'll say. Blizzard did a pass basically across every tier set and adjusted the stats.
And weapons,
Um,
which is, I guess, technically
yeah, yeah,
outside
the
of
second,
those,
yeah,
but weapons do.
yeah, they did weapons and tier set pieces. Not for every class, but for most. The monk one, personally, not happy at all as a haste lover. They removed pretty much most of the haste from our tier set. I think only one piece has it now versus it was
Two of them
three
have it,
before.
chest
There's
and
two.
legs.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Sorry. But it was three before, and it was three verse haste pieces, which is actually really solid. Or sorry, two verse haste and one haste mastery, which is
Yeah.
previously some of the good stuff. But yeah, really late tuning pass on this, which is funny. I don't know why they do that, but
Yeah, I mean, this is why. So we have had a bunch of people coming in to Peak over the past week ish and asking like, "Hey, what four of the five tier pieces do I want to wear? Like, which ones are the ones I should equip? Which ones are the ones I should craft something in that slot? Like, what do I
mhm,
do?" And there's been a lot of just like shrug, come back when it's live. Um, because I mean, it's not like you're getting all five of them week one anyway. Most of
yeah,
you, certainly not me. And
yeah, no,
um, it's so the new stats are significantly better for Brewmaster. Significantly better. Haste is not a good Brewmaster stat. Now there is one heavy haste piece, one kind of light haste piece, and much more verse. Or well, I guess not much more verse, but like it works out to be better. There's more mastery, which is fine. It's good
mhm,
defensively. Um, and basically what this means is it took it from being like a maybe you skip the chest piece, maybe you craft a chest piece, to being like, yeah, you definitely, if you can avoid it, don't wear the don't wear the chest piece because it's now heavy haste.
yeah, gotcha.
Um, Before it was like you probably didn't wear the helm, but maybe you didn't wear the chest. Like it wasn't clear. Now you just like almost certainly the chest is not the play.
Yeah, yeah. I mean the problem is that the chest is haste mastery for us, so probably do it something different. I don't actually know what the off pieces are off the top of my head, but
Well, with our new and glorious world of crafting,
oh,
it
that's right. You don't
doesn't
even
matter
matters. Doesn't matter.
because you can just make a 447 piece with whatever stats you want.
That is true. That is true. I forgot about that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is just I will tell you, like, in general, like, don't craft an armor piece week one. Like,
Yes.
as a craft a weapon, you know you're gonna use it,
Well,
you know it's a
okay.
power increase.
Eh,
Well, at least for a healer,
yeah.
craft a
Yeah.
weapon. Um, it's a solid power increase and yeah, but don't craft armor until you get till you get your four piece and then start to fill in the blanks from there.
Nothing feels
Um,
worse than like crafting a piece early and then having to take it off and basically throw it in the bin because you got a tier piece in that slot and you never got the fifth piece to swap it around, or it took
exactly.
way too long to get that fifth piece. I do want to briefly touch on the itemization changes for the weapons. Um,
Yep.
there's one that is particularly relevant for Brewmaster, and that is Jarun, Pillar of the Elder Flame, which is the special cantrip weapon off of Rashok, which switched from haste mastery to crit mastery, which is again much better for us because it's not haste. Unfortunately, weapon is still significantly worse than wearing two of like the Krog Tusk or Flame, whatever it's called from Neltharis. Um, Weapons like dual wielding is just way better.
Yeah.
So, dual wielding two cantrip weapons, of which you have two choices from two different dungeons, you're just gonna do that, which kind of sucks. But it does mean that if you don't see those drop and you get a Jarun, that Jarun is now better for you than it was.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I to be fair, not writing for Wowhead anymore. Like I don't actually look at gear until like the day before. So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
for me, I knew a little bit like the tier set stuff. I had a decent idea what I wanted to shoot for like in the final set, but like as a healer, like I will take the first 4 pieces I can get, right? Because
Yeah.
at least for Mistweaver, like 4 pieces is super strong. But yeah, this is a like to me, this is such a late set of changes across the board. It's very interesting because like I mean, first of all, weapon stat changes I feel like are not a common thing in
Yeah.
general.
This is
Um,
not common. Yeah.
yeah, I'd say like I have seen the like the tier set stat changes again, not super common, but something they have done in the past. Although typically it's like a month before the raid, like a month
Yeah.
before the patch, right?
It's
It's like
not
super
the
early. So
weekend before.
no, it's not 6 p.m. on a Friday before the patch goes live the next month, or the at least the actually yeah the patch goes live the next Monday. It's like the raid stuff. These weren't. Oh no, these were last Friday. These were just on Friday. So yeah,
Yeah.
like a month or a couple days before the raid goes live.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it's definitely weird. But yeah, I mean, take a double check. I mean, I would say like if you're like best in slot lists, I think a thing are the past anyway. But if you still subscribe to that a thing, those lists have definitely updated
Yep.
since then with a
Yep.
lot of the changes. Um, Mistweaver seems to make out pretty well with some of the in weapons. There's a lot more haste and crit on it, which is something that we care about.
Nice.
Um, which I guess is good, just sort of looking at this. But yeah, weird to see super late stat changes, we'll say.
Yeah.
Um, but cool. I think that's everything we hit on. Went through all the raid stuff, our fights we think might be good.
Yeah.
Went through the new zone stuff. I don't know if there's anything else.
No, I mean, I think that pretty much covers the the everything. There's like Race to World First starting Tuesday. There's gonna be a lot of splits. Just like throwing that out there, there's gonna be a lot of splits, so don't expect to see a whole lot of action unless the raid is like super undertuned. In which case, you might see a lot of action because they may actually be forced into this like prisoner's dilemma about either both doing splits or both progressing the raid.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think like what if we look just to recap quickly. I mean, last race, Liquid did splits for Tuesday and I think all of Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so they didn't step into Mythic till Thursday morning. Echo did splits Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So they didn't step into Mythic till Saturday. So um yeah, I mean it'll be a couple days before you see some Mythic kills by the top guilds. I foresee probably a couple Mythic kills from some of the other like we'll say like still more progressed than us, but like not world first raiders, right? Like a lot of the world top 100 guilds, I think will go in and kill a couple bosses early,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it'll be a lot of splits early. So and both depending on if you're NA or EU, I know that Echo, Limit, Method, and I think BDGG are all paying you to join their normal and heroic splits.
And give
So
them
if you have
gear,
some
of
extra
course. Yeah.
yeah, give them beer. So if you have an alt or you're just you want to shore up on some gold, check that out. But yeah, events will be fun. This is always a cool time. So yeah, and shout out to so I will say always shout out to my boy Preheat who runs all the content for Echo. He did their trailer. So love that dude. So their production will be top notch, although I'm 100% rooting for Liquid to win because I'm NA and EU can suck it. But no, that would be fun. The race for world first is always interesting. So we'll see what these guys pull out because yeah. I'm
Yeah.
excited for Memorex actually. Like from a race for world first perspective, Magmarex, sorry, I think is the boss I'm most excited to watch them do.
Yeah, I mean
Because
that scans like Sludge Fist and Regalon and Raden.
Guardian of the Guardian of the first one, if it was tuned
Well,
better, maybe.
yeah, Guardian of the first one's just died. So I mean,
Yeah.
you blinked and you missed it. But those other three, like all three, were that same style of like pretty high check boss that you know. So I think it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to watching that one. I think it'll be fine to progress. I want to see what the hell Skarn is going to be on Mythic.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be it'll be fun to see how they work positioning with that one because that's the whole fight is right getting that positioning down so
Yeah,
those random traps don't screw you over. But yeah, or just the on the fly calls maybe because that
yeah.
that was the other thing is Skarn, and we didn't really talk about this in thing, but maybe my quick topic is it reminded me a little bit of what was the worm boss in Nyalotha, um,
Yeah.
with all the ads that would pop up. It
Yep.
it reading over it, like at least the heroic thing made me call like it's not as intense as that one because there was a lot of like specific call outs about where to put DPS there, and like that was I think a little bit more hectic,
Yeah.
um but a similar idea of like trying to do some on the fly calls like in fight, which will be interesting to see how it plays out. So
Although that worm boss in Nyalotha was completely scripted.
that's true.
So
That's true. But it was at least for a guild like mine, there was still points where you're like, we need more DPS for this. So you knew where all
yeah,
the spawns were, but
right.
like we needed to be a little bit better about like doing DPS. But
Sometimes
yeah,
your people mess up their cooldowns. That's okay.
yeah. Or they
Yeah.
just are on the other side of the map killing something that doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Uh, which yeah, not that
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 happened.
happens. That happens.
It happens too. Yeah, so
But yeah, I think that is about it. My like mental clock for the podcast is all kinds of off. I have no idea how long we've been going, because we started at like a real like
8:20, I believe,
eight
ish.
twenty ish, right?
Yeah,
Like I think we're
we're
good.
we're about 90 minutes in. I feel
We're
like we're
about 90
close. We're
minutes in.
close. Yeah,
Maybe more, maybe less. I don't remember when we
yeah.
actually started versus when I started the stream. But yeah, I think that is going to be it for the show today. Thank you all for watching and or listening. If you want to support the show and the other work that we do over at the Peak of Serenity, you can do that over at our Patreon at patreon.com/Peak of Serenity. And of course, come and join the Discord. It is the best place to come and hang out and talk about monk stuff and ask questions about what tier slots you should ideally aim for your hypothetical theoretical BIS list.
Which you should craft too. You should definitely ask that question in every miss channel because we don't get it enough. No one asks about crafting
Yeah.
ever.
The real answer, though, to reiterate, is don't craft armor next week.
Yeah, do not do that.
Um, but that is going to be it for the show today. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.